Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson, and today's guest has been in publishing and content management for 16 years. Some of her favorite clients have included a Royal Air Force pilot, a U.S. Navy nuclear submarine captain, and moms. She specializes in coaching authors to refine their message, locking in on a target audience, and then launching a published book, online course, or training material into the market. She has developed over 80 books, created content and curriculum for online training courses, and has sourced a library of hundreds of PDF resources. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Miss Cassandra Smith. Welcome,
Hello.
Cassandra.
Thank you.
So I am excited, of course, to always hear people's story. And you're really focused on, like you said, helping people refine their message. But at the same time, God is intertwined in this. Can you tell us your story?
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in a Christian home. I was homeschooled. Like books reading was everything, right? And so I think as a kid, it was like, I'm gonna write a book one day until suddenly you're in your mid-20s and you go, I should get on that. And I just always felt like I wanted to say something. I felt like God had given me insight or inspiration. And I didn't know how to do that. I wasn't going to become a pastor. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I could write. And so I went down the path of going to writing school and trying to write my first book through traditional publishing. And the entire time, I just felt like women had prayed for me and it said, like, God wants to use your story. Like, yes, help other people, but God also wants to use you. And
Mm.
so I wanted to actually put good skill into telling that story well. And that's what really pushed me to write my first book. And as I went through that process of getting out my first title, I was also in youth ministry
Mm.
and began to figure out how can I speak to youth, not only in a youth room, but also how can I have this expanded platform of books and downloadable resources to help them in things that maybe they won't ask in a public setting. But if I have a written document, they feel comfortable taking that from the back of the youth room or from the back of the church. And I found these other ways to communicate and invite God into their story and meet them where they were at. And for me, that was always writing. That later transitioned into video because we've all become, YouTube and Vimeo addicts. That's where we are at these days too. Um, so writing became producing as well. But at the core of it all was always, how do I tell my story? How do I use where God has taken me and share not only just like the pitfalls and the triumphs, but share his faithfulness the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and constantly get better at the craft and the skill of writing as well. So it's been this long journey, like you mentioned, it's been like 16 years now. Um, but I love it. I love knowing that I have things that I can leave with people. So that even if I can't be present with them, hopefully the writing can, the book can, the resource can, and that I can point them towards a sense of hope.
Yeah, I love it. And so you've had some pretty high profile clients. First of all,
You.
we appreciate our military always,
Yes.
but to be
Yes.
able to get a deeper insight into who they are is amazing to
Yeah.
me because I think we see them go out and we see them perform their duties, but do we really know what's going on inside of them?
Right.
So, can you
Right.
tell people how you are helping people get those books published, get that content out
Yeah.
there?
Here's the thing is we are all experts in our own life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we understand where we're at. And sometimes I think it can be hard to know what words to use to tell our own stories or what part is appropriate. Or sometimes we think like, oh, that's so common because it's common to us, but we don't realize how much it can help someone else. And I love to sit down and really glean from someone else's life. And I say all the time, I'm like, I feel like I get a front row seat to people's individual master classes because I get to interview them and find out
Yeah.
what is it like when you are in these high profile situations where all the spotlight's on you and you've got to fix a problem that's never existed before. How do you get through that? I want to know. I want to know for me. And if I want to know, then I bet an audience wants to know. And if I can coax and coach that story out of someone so that the rest of us can benefit from the triumphs that other people have had to overcome to find, like, it's so much fun. I get to become a better person because I'm learning from someone else's story and I'm helping them tell theirs. It's just a ton of fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, my favorite method for that, if that's the question, is to interview and just really lean in and listen and find the learning inside of their story that they may not even realize is gold. I love to find those moments.
Yeah, I feel like all of us have that gold inside of us, but
Oh
we do
yeah.
need people to pull it out of us. And the life that we live, the mistakes that we made, like you said, the triumphs that
Yep.
we've experienced, all of that can be beneficial to someone else. And I just
Yep.
automatically think of the biblical reference when it talks about we go through things so to help others. And so
Right.
oftentimes I think a lot of us want to keep our story inside because maybe it's the shame of the story. But that's only part of it. You're
Right.
afraid to be vulnerable, but that's only part of it. You Let's not forget how you overcame and how you helped somebody else in the process.
Right.
I would love for you to share with the audience one of your favorite stories that you have been able to craft.
Favorite stories. So I'm gonna go personal because I like to not I let my clients' stories to be their stories, but my favorite one is I was living on a tour bus and I was going from city to city putting on youth conferences for a ministry. And in the in turn of events, one of the speakers every weekend, I didn't know this was happening at first, asked kids to write their letter to God. Like, just, be unburdened, share your story, like it's okay. And all these kids left their letters in the arena. And by the end of the tour, I had about 4,000 of them that I just thought were precious to me. Is like, wow, like these are the kids that we're communicating with every weekend. Like, and they were heartbreaking letters, confessions of thoughts of suicide and depression, anxiety, eating disorders. I mean, just hard stuff to read when like a 14-year-old is writing this. And I took that and I prayed over them and I wrestled with those stories. Like I felt like who's going to answer them? Like, yes, God's going to answer them, but sometimes God uses us, right? Like, how do I partner with him to write them back? Like, how do we reach these kids? And so I ended up putting those in my first book and protecting the identities and protecting the handwriting, but then writing them back and saying, if you feel like this, I want you to know God loves you. I love you. There are communities who want to support you. There are hope lines, hotlines. There are organizations who can meet with you. Like your story's not over. So that was a surprise project to me that I didn't know was going to be part of my life. But it's one of my favorite ones because I felt like I really got to do something important and support even those kids' stories who they weren't trying to write a book. They were just trying to get through a hard moment in their life. But everyone needs coached and nurtured. So that was probably my favorite.
Cassandra, I absolutely love that you wrote those kids back because I feel like sometimes we don't understand the power that we have as individuals. And just taking that moment to say, hey, I'm going to reach out and let them know that somebody is thinking about them, that somebody
Yeah.
saw their prayer, somebody prayed for them, that they're not alone in this is absolutely amazing to me. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that. If
Yeah.
nobody else has told you thank you, I'm saying thank you for doing that. That youth ministry is part of my heart, part of the work I do. So we are definitely kindred spirits in that. Now, Cassandra, what is next for you?
Great question. I feel like we're all building our futures, right? It was my dream since I was a kid, to write books, but also to be a speaker. Like I told someone, a pastor that I admire, I was like in January, I was like, I'm committing this year to be my year of risk. Like I'm going to actually put myself out there. And in a week, 2 weeks, it's actually gonna be my second TED Talk of the year. So that's like I'm starting to like take those steps and ask to be a part of different organizations and share the topics of mental health. and youth ministry and publishing. Three very different topics that somehow all converge.
Hey, I understand.
But my laser focus when I'm not helping other individuals write their books is I'm continuing to build on my series called Change Your Narrative, which is my mental health advocacy resources. After I did find all of those letters, I could not see all of these mental health struggles, not only in youth, but also in adults in America. And I began to do a lot of research to make sure that I could back up the statement that hope and help is out there. And I knew what that hope and help was. And so for me, it's continuing to build on that project. It's one of my favorites and seeing where we go next.
Yeah, I love it. You got to tell people how they can connect with you.
Sure. So for Change Your Narrative, it's changeyournarrative.org for the mental health side. But for all of the publishing coaching that I do, you can find me on launchyourmessage.net. And on them, there are several YouTube videos that explains the process. So whether you're a first-time author or you're looking to take on a new project, you can kind of be guided and get a feel for what's going to happen before we connect. But I also would love to connect with anyone that's considering telling their story.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, Cassandra, as we close out today's interview, you have to give the audience a final word. What is the
Sure.
one thing that you absolutely want them to remember?
Don't let fear hold you back. I got to speak to a group of teenage girls this week. It was the first time I actually spoke to teenagers in about 4 years. And we were talking about writing books and how it is, what do you do? And this little 14-year-old asked me, well, how do you write if you're scared? Like, what if you're scared to tell your story? How do you get the courage to do what you do? And it was like looking at myself like 20, 30 years ago, like, oh my gosh. And I realized inherently, I think we all have fear of telling our stories, but it's really the only thing that holds us back. Sure, we can get better, we can get more skill in how to tell our stories, but dare to tell them because they're the things that connect us and shows where God's hand is in our life, but also helps to remind us of where we've been, who we are, and where we're going. So don't let fear hold you back.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Cassandra.
Sure.
CWS audience, you have heard her. She has issued a challenge. She issued a challenge to herself, and now I'm issuing it to you. Do it, even if you are afraid. Whatever the story is in you, let it come out. And if you need help doing it, Cassandra is there to help you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And until next time, beautiful people, God bless.